Good evening, everyone who is not here yet. Good evening, everyone who will be here. I'm so excited. This is a great topic tonight, and I am just waiting for Miss Shawnee Palmer to join us, and I'm getting started. And there she is. I don't know if she can hear me. I hope everyone can hear me.
I can hear you.
Hey, sister.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
I've been doing pretty good.
Did you lock your hair?
I did.
Listen, I wasn't really supposed to say this, but my hair is locked too, but I'm keeping these two little baby things here.
I love it.
Thank
I love it. Yeah, that's how I started off. I was keeping my little
Really?
first. Yeah, and then I did hair wraps for a while. Yeah.
So wait, how long did it take for your hair to lock? It's so pretty.
All right. So the truth of the matter is that I don't have a lot of patience.
Right.
So I started it and I was just like, I want to add some extensions.
Okay.
So I did my hair for a couple of months and then I added some extensions to get the length. So then they instantly locked it with the extensions.
Oh, wow. I have been like going through it with my hair because I guess, I don't know if you can hear that was like a loud noise out there, but sorry. So my hair, the texture of my hair, first I had the coils and they wouldn't stay in. I was getting so like discouraged. I was about to say, I'm done with this. I'm not about this life. Like I gotta take this out of my hair. So then it kept coming out. So I twisted the ends, like the 2-strand twist. So I got the coils at the top and the 2-strand twist at the end. So that kind of helped me a little bit. So now I'm starting to get some budding and some shrinkage, and I got it going on a little bit. So nobody doesn't know this though. So this is like a first time of me.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing with me.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're gonna be lock sisters soon. Oh, we already are.
You already are. You it's already done.
That's right. I'm so glad to see you though. We haven't talked in so long.
I know. I think I'm like, dang, was it last year when we were last on?
Yes, it was last year.
Yeah. And I kept thinking about Thursday nights, 7 p.m. and I could never make it to any of them. It was just life. Boom, 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 because I work Thursdays. So I'm in the office now. Like I see clients all day and then I'll be like, oh, time to go, time to be done.
Yeah. No, I understand, totally understand. You do a lot. You have like 3 different businesses, you have your books, you have everything. So I guess that's a good cue for me to introduce you as well and to read a little bit of your bio and who you are, Miss Shawnee Palmer. So let me go ahead and do that. So, Ms. Shawnee Palmer, after working in the healthcare field for many years, Shawnee developed a desire to become more active in helping people overcome the challenges of their lives. This desire soon transformed into a passion which led Shawnee to become a licensed clinical social worker and addiction counselor. She named her private mental health practice Alpines. How do you say it? Alpines or Alpine? Alpine, so that's correct. Yeah. Alpine's empowerment agency, both as a tribute to what she works with her clients towards self-empowerment and overcoming their challenges. And after her grandfather, who has been a spiritual guide and angel for Shawnee, guiding her lifelong after she passed. Not only does Shawnee work with those in need of mental and spiritual healing, but she also aids in physical well-being. Shawnee is the owner of Love and Serenity Wellness. Within this company, Shawnee incorporates her talents in mental health sector by also providing books and consultation services that aid in healing, understanding, and gaining wisdom that guides individuals to fulfill their true purpose in life. And lastly, but certainly not least, Ms. Shawnee is an author who released her book, Shifting Your Mindset, a guide to overcome depression, anxiety, and trauma. So that is tonight's topic. And we'll be talking about life after trauma. So, Ms. Shawnee, what is life after trauma? Because I feel like we're all just still trying to figure out life after trauma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things where you can never pinpoint what it's supposed to look like, because after trauma, you could be in a shock phase where you're still like feeling the effects of everything, kind of replaying everything out in your mind. And life after trauma is all about the things that you do to move yourself into another way of living. Because trauma can sweep on in and take over everything that you have going on, everything that you had going on before. And sometimes it wipes it away depending on the severity of the trauma. And I think that life after trauma is a representation of where you're supposed to be headed towards when it comes to fulfilling your true life purpose. I think that, some things aren't a coincidence when it comes to triggering moments. And that there's a level of like normalizing trauma to an extent, but I know that some things are just, there'll never be a clear understanding of it. There's some things I just definitely do not normalize ever working in this field, especially when it comes to abuse, specifically with trauma, like the pandemic and changes and things like that. That's a form of trauma, secondhand trauma, experiencing other people's trauma, but there is just so many different levels. But the reality is that we do have to acknowledge that it impacts us all, and there's no more severe way that anybody is impacted that is more important or valuable than others. It's all the same thing, and everybody deserves to be able to really recover from it all.
Absolutely. And I think something that we may need some clarification on, if you can answer this question, is there are different types of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So people experience maybe trauma from their parents, maybe trauma from addiction, or I don't know, the terminology for those type of things. But would you be able to tell us, like, are there like categories and things of that nature?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are trauma that you endure from like a global pandemic, so natural disaster type of things, global situations that happen. There's the sexual, mental, physical abuse that happens during your childhood or as an adult. If you're off into the war, that's a significant trauma. Natural disasters such as like tornadoes, hurricanes, all of that. Recently, we had the tornadoes that swept through, and it was very significant because it's never happened before in history where there was a lot of lives lost. There's the grief from losing a loved one type of trauma, but also the loss of a relationship, a job, a lifestyle that you used to have. All of those are considered trauma categories. And I think I touched on the majority of them that I can think of, that it just shows up and looks different, but the severity is still strong.
Absolutely. And I think in our community, a lot of times we find ourselves trauma bonding with relationships, friends, and things of that nature. So for people who don't know what trauma bonding is, would you be able to explain that?
Oh yeah, I used to have a relationship with trauma bonding. So when it comes to trauma bonding, it's all about the way that you connect with the person. Typically, when we connect with people, we don't recognize that there's something that we have that is common interest that attracts us to each other. And sometimes we don't know exactly what it is until we start growing and learning with that person. So, for example, trauma bonding can be okay. I have unhealthy habits that came about from the trauma that I endured as a child. So maybe I connected with more children who experienced the same things and have that same level of hurt and pain. So that's what attracted us together. So then we bond based on that trauma, and we may talk about those traumatic moments that we shared with each other. And also we may rely on each other for emotional support regarding the trauma. So we're
Mhm.
trauma bonding because we're only making connections through what we endured pain wise, and not necessarily what we endured, happiness and joy and peace wise.
I think that's definitely something that we all need to pay attention to because it can happen without you even knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're sympathizing and you're recognizing that this person's pain because you've experienced the same thing. And it's kind of like, well, we can help each other heal. But, for the most part, only you can do that for yourself.
Right. Yep. Yep. And then you you don't recognize that every time you're having a conversation, it's about something connected to the trauma. And then you get wrapped up in it. Then we get to gossiping about other people, and it's just like, it's just a cycle that keeps repeating itself. And you don't recognize, okay, I'm getting something out of this. And that's where the brain, the chemicals start producing, and you kind of get a sense of like content and comfort with it. So you don't know that it's something that you should be doing until you actually heal from that situation. And then you recognize that there may not be any value in that relationship dynamic. So it's like you have to experience it in order to identify it and then break free from it.
Do you think that people can help you heal from your trauma? Like people?
Yeah.
Not necessarily like therapists and things of that nature. I mean, like relationship wise.
Yeah, relationship wise, I absolutely do. But it takes a level of a person coming into a situation to be okay with another person's trauma, and they have to be healed themselves from certain things, or on a healing journey where they feel like they're capable and willing to step in and play a role in it, instead of like feeding and enabling that trauma bonding, if they're disconnecting from it and not allowing it to take place and holding the other, each other to a level of accountability, that can absolutely happen. Like I've heard of a lot of people, getting out of a marriage, abusive marriage, and then a month or 2 months later or a year later and connecting with another person. And then that's the love of their life and they helped heal them. But I mean, it requires a lot of patience.
A lot of patience, definitely. Because some of their traumas can trigger off some of your old ones. And then what's next? You know what I mean? It's a clash. So, yeah. I know you have a PowerPoint that you wanted to share with us tonight. I actually, I know you probably want to cover some good points, but I know I for sure want to get our people some coping mechanisms and some ways that they can deal with seeking help for trauma and things of that nature. So if you want to, get started on your PowerPoint, you can.
Yeah, and let me see if I can share my screen. I don't know how this works.
I think I have to do it. I think I have to help you do it. Okay, so let me try this 1 second.
And if it doesn't, that's all right. We can still roll it.
Okay, let me try this thing. All right, you should be good to go. Because I didn't did this about 3 times before already. So if this should be it.
All right. All right. Damn. So hopefully you can see the screen.
Yes, ma'am. I can see the screen.
Okay. All right, perfect. So when it comes to life after trauma, I feel that everybody has the ability to truly just create the life that they deserve. Now, I've experienced trauma, and even though I'm a mental health therapist, of course, I'm not exempt. And I feel that I've worked with a lot of individuals who have had real life situations that kind of mirrored my situation. So I had to do the work, for myself in order for me to be able to truly help other people throughout their things. So I felt like I've created the life that I deserve, and I'm creating the life that I truly deserve, further along, because I'm not done and not nowhere near where I'm headed towards. So disclaimer, there's no diagnosing when it comes to the things I'm going to talk about today. This is based off of my life experiences, what worked for me, and, just sharing this with other people in the field that I do and hearing their testimonies based off of the recommendations that I provide them with. I think that in everything you need tools, and those tools are your arm to help carry you through life, so that way you can maintain a certain level of strength. So I definitely want to talk to you about some of the common emotions and thoughts that linger on after you've experienced trauma. And then we're going to talk about specifically 4 methods to recovering from trauma, and then how to kind of like shift your thought process when it comes to identifying the trauma and the lessons that you may have learned from it. Because honestly, you really have to be able to get a hold of the trauma and grab it and find out what you want to do with it. Because if you don't do that and you allow yourself to sit in that trauma, you'll sink. and then that trauma will consume you and your life. So these are just valuable tips to be able to say, you know what, I'm snatching back control over my life. I may not have been the initiator of this trauma, but I am going to be the force that drives this trauma out of my life. So when it comes to like the trauma responses, any of those things that I mentioned earlier, the abuse, grief, loss of any sort, there's going to come moments where you feel like you're fearful about things, or you may have anxiety, excessive worry. That may even transition over to some panic attacks. And sometimes when those thoughts are reoccurring in your mind, you're going to keep re-experiencing those emotions. And sometimes you have to find ways to be able to truly manage them in the moment so that way they're not overpowering you. I'm really big on deep breathing when it comes to feeling that anxiety or panic, because it's not just in the mind, it's in the body. And when you can deep breathe, you're allowing your mind and body to connect with each other. So like that left and that right side of the brain are connecting in sync. And it allows you to kind of like settle yourself in. So that way you can go from re-experiencing that trauma to settling in, to recognizing what's centered and around you. And then just the deep breath itself is really powerful for that. I encourage individuals to like do deep breathing every single day, because we're always experiencing stress in some manner. And most of the time, as human beings, we just navigate through life, picking up stress left and right. And it doesn't matter if it's positive stress or negative stress. Stress is stress. The brain and body don't know the difference. It just knows that, hey, we need to store this within us because there's nothing else that you're telling us to do with it. So deep breathing is a really good, effective method. Anything that's physical that helps like break up that within your body, that discomfort in your body, is also good. You can, instead of deep breathing, if that's not your thing to do, doing some quick jumping jacks, like 20 to 30 jumping jacks just out of nowhere, can help alleviate that and get yourself recentered in a quick manner. Oftentimes with trauma, we have the fear of re-experiencing the event. So for this tip, I always tell individuals, don't keep experiencing the same event the same way. Allow yourself to add pieces into it that gives you another experience with it. So if you're re-experiencing the trauma, think about, okay, well, this trauma happened in this space, but what safety tool would I have needed when I actually did have the event that would make me feel safe? Maybe that's a person, maybe it's an item, and just kind of remind yourself to kind of bring that tool into that event after you're reflecting on it. The mind is powerful. We have that ability to be able to transition and add those tools in, but it does take a lot of like trial and error and trying to push yourself through it. We all experience shock and disbelief of what happened at times, and you can feel like displaced from the situation, like, oh wow, did that really happen? And then there's a level of like confusion around it, but there's, it's normal. So if you can kind of take some of these emotions that you experience and recognize that it's happening for a reason because the body is healing from it, that can also subside some of the emotions forward. Sometimes we kind of go into a state of like disbelief of, why am I experiencing this? Why do I keep having to feel this? And sometimes the response needs to be something different, such as, okay, I'm experiencing this because of XYZ. There's a level of validation that you're providing yourself where you can go ahead and push that emotion that you've been feeling along versus allowing it to sit in the body. Being tired, having sudden feelings of irritability, being on edge about things are very common. When it comes to things such as like maybe people who have had some type of trauma where there was a crime involved. I didn't mention that one earlier. Being robbed or witnessing something of that nature. You can have a lot of paranoia about other people when you go into social spaces and things like that. So just kind of not having such a hyper awareness and eliminating those type of environments going into them, so that way you don't have to feel that paranoia as intense as it can come about. But there's a lot of other coping skills that you can do before kind of pushing yourself along in that manner. When it comes to sleep and loss of appetite and like physical health symptoms, all of those things are very common, having headaches, body pain. So it's always important to, connect with the medical doctor if you're experiencing all of those with trauma. So that way you can make sure that, hey, we can rule out any physical health issues. And if it's just stress, that's where, beefing up those coping strategies are really good. All right, so when it comes to trauma, when you think about life in itself, you built yourself up to a certain extent. And I'm just saying building in the sense of you've had several experiences throughout life where when trauma comes about, it feels like a tower moment and everything comes crashing down. And you start to recognize that you didn't have any power over that crashing down tower moment. But when it comes to like rebuilding your life, it can look different as long as you apply like these 4 elements to like building a foundation back up for yourself. Now, I'm a very intense spiritual person, so everything when it comes to like mental health, emotional health, I always connect with God on things. And spiritual terms I'm going to use today pretty much because these are some things that are very important when it comes to like language for what do you do, what steps, what blueprint do you create for yourself to be able to get yourself in a position where you're creating the life that you deserve. So we're going to talk about protection, pruning, preparation, and positioning. Okay. All right, so when it comes to protection, of course, we want to make sure that when you are in a space of after you're experiencing trauma, you want to make sure that you're safe and that you're not in those same environments where the trauma occurred, because then you be kind of on edge, have a lot of paranoia, and you really wouldn't be able to keep yourself in a healthy emotional state because you're seriously like right there and you're in danger. So it's always good to be able to identify how you can keep yourself out of harm's way from people who have caused the emotion, the mental health disturbance, any physical disturbances, and seek safety. That's the most important aspect of everything, because if our basic needs are not met, we're not going to be able to get our mental and emotional health in place at all whatsoever. So whatever that protection looks like is very important. For me specifically, when I've encountered any type of trauma, of course, being safe physically, spiritually is very important for me to be able to connect with the word, certain protection prayers and things like that, because it kind of gives you a sense of comfort. But whatever works for you, make sure that you feel that you have that in place, whether it's with other people, a location, an item that you keep near you when you go into spaces. I highly recommend for those who have been like assaulted to go to classes when it comes to gun safety, protecting yourself if you're a woman, when it comes to things, mace, kind of getting all of those tools so that way you have that strength, that physical strength to be able to protect yourself in that manner if you don't have anybody else to physically protect you. All right, so pruning. Now, the spiritual aspect of pruning means to like cut off or cut back parts for better shape or more fruitful growth. And when we prune correctly, we can encourage healthy growth and flowering to its fullest potential. Now, pruning is like, okay, let me go ahead and take away some pieces of the trauma that has been experienced, so that way I can make sure that the things that are intact, and what's intact would be if I have stable employment, that's something that's still intact. Finances, maybe my housing is employment. I have some healthy relationships with people. Those are intact. So you want to make sure that those things are still there, and that the things that have created like habits, disturbances aren't still lingering around that could interfere those things that still are good. We want those things to still be fruitful and multiply. We were talking about trauma bonding earlier. You want to make sure that you're not bonding with new people, or maybe even reconnecting with old individuals and old relationships where you're utilizing those unhealthy habits that have come about, gossiping, venting, victimhood mentality, blaming, just aggressive anger, talking about the situation that happened at hand. So I always ask individuals, think about the things that are still intact when it comes to your life after trauma. Oftentimes when people are, right after experiencing the trauma, they feel like, okay, everything is going wrong. And it may just be literally one thing going wrong, and it may be their money going wrong. And they may feel like nothing is going right in life and they can't find the positive in anything. So I try not to use that word of, okay, well, what's going on positive in your life? Because sometimes we're not able to see beyond that when experiencing trauma. So it's like, okay, well, what do you feel is stable? What do you feel like is the same? And it's good to be able to kind of look at different categories of, okay, well, what does your social life look like? What does your career and professional life look like? What was it like before the trauma? Was there any disturbances there? Okay. Think about like healthy relationships. Who's in your life? Like, what does your support system look like? And then if there are unhealthy habits that are formed from the trauma, such as, okay, maybe you've started drinking more because you're on edge and you want to take the thoughts away. Maybe using drugs because you want to take the thoughts away from what happened, or you want to lighten up the symptoms that you have from the anxiety, the depression that's creeping on in. Those are the habits, that are unhealthy for you, because you got to think about it. If you're doing it now, and if you did it long term, what is going to happen in your life? Are you going to start having physical health problems? Is it going to interfere with the relationships that you have with other people? Are you not going to be able to show up at work or in relationships effectively if you're utilizing all of these unhealthy habits long term? Because with trauma, we thinking about like, what are these quick fixes that's going to take this pain away? And I get it. I've done some unhealthy things too, but also I recognize that it wasn't serving me any good. In the moment, it was serving me good because I thought that, I was doing something by, engaging in the activity to let go of it. And all it is just like sweeping things under the rug, avoiding. And as I said earlier, with stress, it's building up in the body. So when you avoid things, and every time you have a reoccurring moment of trauma, every emotion that you feel is re-experienced, and you're experiencing it more, and it's piling on top of another. So imagine experiencing trauma from 10 years ago, and every day you haven't done anything towards it but keep re-experiencing it. So that's 10 years of trauma stored up in your body, not one day of trauma, but 10 years. And it gets heavy on the body, and it can produce and manifest itself into other health issues. Issues with your lung, issues with your heart, developing issues with having unhealthy eating patterns, just relationships with money being negative, the relationship with yourself being negative. So when those things start to formulate, you have to recognize, okay, what do I need to cut back of? What do I need to cut off in my life that is going to be better for my growth? And what that growth is your healing. Now, you're not going to know exactly what that healing is supposed to look like, because you got to start doing the work first. You have to have a level of patience to go ahead and push through all of that. When it comes to like the unhealthy habits that you form, like attachments to people, there can be a way of healthily attaching to people. Maybe you have one person that you can rely on that has good boundaries that they can set with you, that can give you some good sound advice, that can sit there and let you in. That's a good coping strategy to be able to replace for unhealthy attachments to people, having unhealthy maybe expectations of people, and kind of like emotionally dumping on them. Find a person that you can talk to instead of dumping on, and do it in a healthy dosage, so that way each time it's like healing for you. Go and talk to that person, healing for you. Journaling, really big on journaling, writing things out, getting thoughts out of your mind, because those thoughts are going to be lingering on. And the more and more you sit there and let them turn in your mind, the more they're going to build up. The emotions connected to it are going to build up. So when we can talk to ourselves and allow those thoughts to kind of be more organized on paper, it allows it to be more organized in your thought form. All right, so we got protection, pruning. The next step is, I want you to think about like how trauma has impacted your life or other people's lives around you. Sometimes we don't recognize that we have secondhand experienced trauma, and now we're on edge about something. Specifically with the pandemic and the senseless shootings and killings of Black people, there's been a lot of secondhand trauma that I know that I've experienced, and I had to learn how to disconnect from that news in a way where I didn't allow it to rile me up to the point where I'm just not able to function and I'm angry, because we have every right, especially as Black people, to be angry about situations that we've endured with unjust situations where there has been no justice served. And even though that anger is validated, we don't want to sit in a point where now our behaviors are reflecting that anger, because now we're part of that cycle. We're part of that system that has created this feeling of fear, this feeling of anger within us, and now we're going off and we're not being kind to other people. So we're doing the same thing that they've done to us. It just looks different. So just think about how the trauma has impacted your life and others' lives around you, so that way you can start with that pruning process. Like, it's good to be able to identify just one method, and then you start pruning away at it, and then it helps when it comes to those other things that may come up. Some of those things we're not easily ready to get rid of, okay? If you love your ice cream and it's really soothing for you, and it has those dopamine and endorphins, really producing, you may not be ready to give that up. But, maybe you're ready to give up some other things, some other unhealthy habits that have come about. You just have to have that level of patience to be able to do it. Baby step at a time, because that's what it's all about. If you want to create the life you deserve, you cannot rush the process, because the way the brain and body are is that, like, they're going to do its natural thing. You cannot speed up a process of healing. So you just have to go with the flow. All right, so we got protection, pruning, and preparation. Now, honestly, this is my favorite part, because once I got into this space last year in 2020 for my true healing, I was able to truly get myself into a position where I started formulating new habits, doing things I never thought that I would do. Speaking being the number one thing, honestly, being able to connect with more people that I never would have, thought about connecting with, allowing myself to step outside of my comfort zones for so many different things, as well as like transitioning the thought process that I had about like past life, really stepping outside of the victimhood mindset, because, I wanted to create. In creating, you cannot utilize old methods of doing things. You have to start from scratch with things. Some things are beneficial, but when you're creating with trauma, you don't gain from all of that. So you want to be able to create from scratch with whatever it is that you desire for yourself. So if you desire peace, you're going to start creating for peace, and whatever that peace looks like, you got to be able to kind of shift it into gear. But yes. Questions.
Yes, so I'm raising my hand, and this is the second time you said victimhood mindset. What is that?
All right. So the victimhood mindset is everybody has done something to me, and everybody keeps doing things to me, and that's how life is always going to be. And I'm going to maneuver through life telling everybody what everybody has done to me, and not thinking about what I've done to myself, right? So it's a level of not taking accountability for your life. And while you may be a victim initially, you don't have to create that and build real estate on it. And that's where the hood piece comes in, because you got to think about like a neighborhood. You build neighborhood, you build community and things like that. And people, for some reason, like to build a whole lifestyle around being a victim. And when you do that, you don't win. You don't truly get the healing that you need. And that's kind of something that you'll probably hear from other people, but that's my interpretation of victimhood, because I speak on that, but I was also that, some time ago before I decided to, no longer be a victim and be a victor.
I think we do that a lot with our parents. You know what I mean? Like we before You don't know. So you blame your parents for everything until you get to the point where it's kind of like, well, they did the best that they could for what they knew in the situations that they was in. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
think we get stuck with that victimhood mindset with our parents a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's absolutely fine to do it initially, but at some point there has to be a cutoff because now you're drowning in that and you're making that part of
Right.
your life story and you're
Mhm.
like the end. So now you're minimizing yourself instead of saying, okay, my parents did this, and I did this. This was my response to it. You're just saying my parents did this, they did this, and did this, and did this.
Right.
And that gets old. Like your brain needs something else to latch onto and to truly evolve in life. But if you're not giving it anything, it's just going to keep sinking, you know? So,
Yeah, and I also think a lot of times we get stuck in the mindset of thinking that they're going to be in the same space that we are and understand what we're trying to say to them and expecting some type of acknowledgement or apology or something of that nature. It's kind of like you just gotta take it for what it is and make the decision to heal on your own and go through a journey without them because some they might not make it that to where you are.
mhm. Yeah. And as human beings, we want to gain a full understanding of things. But unfortunately, when it comes to healing, it's no longer about everybody else and it's about you. You just have to learn how to understand yourself and why you reacted the way that you did, how life impacted you the way that it did based on others' behavior. But you can't expect that they're going to give you that level of closure because they opened it up. So it ideally, it really doesn't make sense for somebody who came in and created all of this trauma with you to also be the one to come in and heal you. But for some reason, as humans, we're just like, nope, I'm demanding it. And this is an expectation that we sometimes have. And it's like, that's unrealistic because where that person was at when they did that to you, you have no idea. And you'll never understand that level of disturbance that they were experiencing and you really don't want to. So, you have to kind of pull yourself back from like overly stressing yourself because then that just halts everything that you need for yourself.
Yeah, it's almost like you're a hindrance
Hmm.
and staying stagnant in that space and waiting. You'll be waiting forever.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, everybody is on a different life journey. And like, even for my parents specifically, I've had to come to a place of acceptance that they're going to be who they are. But because of who they are, it doesn't have to interfere with what I have going on in life. I feel like when you have children, you bring children into this world, they're a continuation of you, and because my parents stopped where they stopped, I get to continue on with life, picking up the pieces. And there's a sense of like hope for me, and nurturing my inner child because I know that I have unlimited opportunities to be able to do the things that they couldn't do. They couldn't do it because of the cards they were dealt. Yeah, I may have been dealt some cards too, but it's not the same. It's not 100% the same, you know. And plus, like I don't know, being in that space of shoulda, woulda, coulda, it just doesn't get you anywhere. It's a starting point. It's a good conversation starter because we talk to ourselves. We're going to naturally go there, which is fine. But at what point do we feel stuck? When you feel stuck, that's when you have to shift it over into another thought process. So, yeah. Anything else?
No, it was preparation, it was pruning,
Mm-hmm.
it was
Protection.
protection. What was the other one?
We got one more. We got one more.
No, don't do me. Hold on. Preparation, pruning, protection, and what was the other one? Give me a
We
hint.
haven't done it yet.
Oh, we haven't done it yet. That's why I'm
We
like,
haven't
what is
done
it? I
it
need
yet.
a hint.
Yes, we about to jump on into that thing because with
Okay. All
preparation,
right. Okay.
yeah, with preparation, you get to share your testimony. You get to help others who have experienced similar traumas. You get to prepare yourself for new opportunities and an evolution. And what that evolution is, don't ever put a cap on it. You just got to know that I'm evolving, and that can help with that preparation. All right. So the last one. It's positioning. Right. So when it comes to the word position, it means to occupy a certain place, to be situated. So where do you want to be situated? For me, I encourage individuals to be sitting in their truth, removing themselves from distractions. So you're in a space of ease. You're in a space of easy flow where you don't have things clouding you. Right? You have space and you have freedom. Positioning yourself is also gaining more knowledge. You have more knowledge, so then you're going to have more understanding about life in itself, and life that is to come for you as well. You'll be more open-minded to it, and you get a chance to challenge the trauma that came into your life, but also you get a chance to embrace the wisdom that has came along with the experiences that you've had. Now you've changed all of these habits that you had. When you change habits, it's challenging, but create a new habit creates a lot of discipline. And when you have discipline, the sky's the limit in life. Like when I became vegan 6 years ago, that was the biggest thing that I could have ever done, coming from a family of, soul food eaters, Southern cooking, just unhealthy ways of eating just in general. So when you're able to have that level of accomplishment, it's a game changer. It's a new lifestyle that nobody in your family has ever been able to experience. And if you want to be that one to be able to truly elevate, find discipline and embrace the wisdom that comes along with all of that. So some lessons that I think are very pivotal when it comes to trauma in general is that you have to recognize that you have the ability to make choices that benefit you. Sometimes we don't feel like we have choices, but we do. And that's because we spend so much time and energy, like literally energy, effort into focusing on things that we have no control over, that we don't have the capacity in our minds to focus in on what we do have the ability to be able to focus in on and control. I know all about like trying to be the strong Black woman, and I recognize that I don't have to be strong all the time, and that me sitting still does not make me weak. It makes me vulnerable. It makes me human. It makes me wise, actually, because now I'm not moving. I'm not trying to be something in a space when I'm discontent and I'm not happy. And I'm not also like sacrificing parts of myself just to appear another way. I think that people should love themselves throughout the pain and speak positivity into themselves in some way. Even if it's just, hey, look at one area of your body and love on that piece. If you really love your hair, love on your hair throughout the pain. It's all right if everything else feels off. Find the smallest things that you love for yourself, because we're always so connected and worried about everybody else and going through trauma that we just like, okay, let me show up still and avoid pain. But the way that you can truly get the healing that you need is to love on yourself and find those kind words. So that way you're not enabling the pain, because trauma didn't treat you fairly, right? So why are you mimicking how trauma treated you through negative self-talk and those unhealthy behaviors? Loving yourself is important. When it comes to the things that we talked about with the protection, the pruning, the preparation, the positioning, what you're doing literally is planting the seed. And when you plant seeds, when you're gardening, you don't sit there and watch it, right? You don't wait for it to grow, put it down in the dirt, you water it, get the sunlight, and let it do its natural thing. The brain and the body can heal itself. It doesn't need your disruption. So navigate through life and do things that are enjoyable for you. So that way, that you're going to be able to see the fruits of your labor as you navigate through. But you want to experience life. You don't want to just let life pass you by. And I think that when you can just sit there and do other things, while the healing is occurring, it can be something very beautiful that comes out of that testimony. And the most important thing is, I would say, hey, just be still. Just be patient. You don't always have to be on the go. You don't always have to feel like you need to have your hands on something, be in control of things. Sometimes you just can just rest, relax, resting or relaxing is so important during the healing journey. Yes, I know when you sit still, the mind starts going, right? But it's supposed to do that because it's healing. Each time your mind is going, it's healing. So you want to allow it to do its natural healing, and you want to validate it instead of invalidating it. Because when you sit down with yourself and you're quiet and you tell your brain, we're not supposed to be doing this, guess what? You're telling it, don't be you. Don't do the healing. And that's where, journaling, maybe listening to music, dancing, exercising, doing all of those things come into place when it comes to coping, because at least you're doing something for you in that moment. You're giving those thoughts context. You're telling them what you need them to do. And when you do that activity, you're most likely going to feel good. So you're telling your brain and body, let's feel good. Let's keep feeling good. Let's feel good with this trauma as we push through throughout this healing. And when you rest, you don't overexert the body. You don't have those sudden feelings of anxiety, sudden feelings of paranoia, issues with sleeping coming in, because you're already taking the time and doing it in increments they're conducive for your body. So it's always important to kind of just be still. So overall with healing, I'll give you 4 tips. You got to recognize that healing doesn't take place overnight. You have not reached your final destination. Even when you think you have, you haven't, because you are not the determiner of that. Recognize that patience is key. And it's important to be able to do self-reflections and evaluations of the past on a routine basis. Think about when we're working for employers, every year we're having to do an evaluation to determine, how we've done the past year. And I think that when you do that for your healing journey, it can be of value to you. So that way you can be in control and you can monitor things that are going well and things that are not going well. And then you can kind of like beef up those things that are going well and then start over with that process. Protection, pruning, preparation, and positioning yourself, so then you just kind of start back over in those things, kind of looking at how those things are showing up in your life and making adjustments. Make adjustments and make changes before the changes come about, because we know change is going to happen. We're not in control of it, but you can be in control of some things, and then the shock of anything that's suddenly happening out of your control will feel less intense, because when you've experienced trauma, when you experience the other traumas that come about with life, they may be as intense, they may not be as intense. You may get to a place where you're numb, but you're human. And I think that normalizing the aspects of that and preparing yourself and always staying prepared and having that level of awareness makes things easier for yourself as you navigate through. So when it comes to healing, as a therapist, I always got to recommend some resources: Psychology Today, BetterHelp, Therapy for Black Girls, and Talkspace.com. If you feel like, okay, I need some support on this that's beyond my family, my circle of friends, there are hotlines that you can call to get information. There's a lot of books that are out there. I'm a really big book person, so I've done a lot of my healing based on the books that I've read. Hearing other people's testimonies can be really good. There's a lot of podcasts out there. So many different resources. You just have to start with one. And if one doesn't work, do not give up. Just keep trying other ones. Because that's how important your healing is. You have to take it serious. And when you take it serious and you don't lack on it, the healing does not slow down, and the progression can actually happen when you keep moving. But the moment you stop is when all of that stuff starts to build on up. And as long as you keep moving, even if it's at a really slow pace, you're at least doing something to really have the life that you deserve when it comes to trauma. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions.
Nope, not at this time. You are moving on a great pace, and we are right here making good timing for the community to be able to contact you. Most people that may be going back and watching, they may not know that you are located where?
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. Missouri. And as a mental health therapist, I'm actually licensed in Colorado and Illinois. So I have means to be able to connect with more people. So if anybody's ever interested in working with me, reach out. I'm really big on supporting the community and providing all of the services and knowledge that I can for helping other people. So I do a lot of internships and things like that, a lot of volunteer work. So just let me know what questions you have or if you need anything.
Definitely. And I am planning to do a directory to add on to Sister's website. So your contact information would definitely be something that I would love to add to our directory as a resource for the community to be able to reach out to. Even though you're not in our state, we're doing virtual now, we're doing phone now, you know what I mean? Things of that nature. So it'll be a big benefit for you to be in our community,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, there's just, a lot of things that I enjoy talking about and being of service for. And location doesn't have to be a barrier there as long as the knowledge is getting out there. That's what matters.
Absolutely. And then within a closing message, I kind of wanted to say you had for the conclusion, one of my favorite ones that you had on there was patience is key. To just be patient with yourself and not necessarily focus on perfection, but the progress. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be big. Like you said, focus on one part of your body and love on that part, and then move to the next part, and then focus on this part of your life. Like it can be in, is it called increments?
Increments.
Increments, yeah, it could be small things. So that was my favorite part. Patience is key. Just be patient with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the world's not going to be. The world's going to be like, snap, snap, let's go.
At all. And then another thing too, when you say love on yourself, it's okay to love on yourself, and it's not selfish. Don't let people make you think that you're being selfish by loving on yourself. How can you even love anyone else if you're not showing yourself that same love? So, love on you and don't feel bad about it.
Right. Yep. You got to save some for you because, if you're a natural nurturing person and you love to show up and help other people, you have to also recognize how to put a cap on that at times so that way you're not pouring too much of yourself out when you're feeling empty. Because once you feel empty, you have nothing to give, then what else? You're not going to have that level of fulfillment for your natural why, when it comes to life. So you gotta reel some things back in and have something sitting on the side for yourself so that way you can always see it. You can always feel it. You feel like you have access to it. When you don't have access to yourself, you're so disconnected. You really don't know who you are when you look in the mirror. So know who you are when you look in the mirror. And when other people try to tell you who you are, you can let them know who you really
are. Exactly. And don't let people try to keep bringing you back to your past self. If that's somebody that you grew from and you want to introduce people to the new you, then demand that respect for the new you. It's not fair to even allow them to do anything like that to you. Stand firm on who you are and showing people who you are. And if they don't believe it, I mean, it is what it is. You know what your heart desires, and you know what you're moving towards. You're healing. That's the most important part about it. So in closing, this was our second annual speaker series to providing knowledge for community development. This is your second time coming on here, and I'm so thankful to have you join us. And hopefully you'll be joining us next year. This is actually our last one for the speaker series for you to be joining us. I'm so glad. It was a refresher of who you are and where you come from and things of that nature. So thank you for being here and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for all that you do for the community. Putting on this speaker series, I see you talking about the walks, and I love it. I wish I could be there. I'm like, oh man, they are walking this early. I wish I was in town to do it. So I appreciate you for doing your part in the community to be able to help others with healing and letting them know that they are amazing and that they're deserving of great lives. So thank you for everything that you do.
You're welcome. Thank you. And we're stronger together. So this is why this community is here for us to love, grow, and heal together. So with people like you and me join forces, we can change the world. So I'm happy that you're here with us tonight. And I look forward to speaking with you soon. And maybe sometime this year, you'll be able to come out to Delaware and join us at the walk if COVID dies down.
Right. Yes, we're going to put some things in motion.
Right, we're going to put some things in motion. So it was nice talking to you tonight.
Yes, you as well.
See you soon.
Sounds good.